Alright people, review of the week time. So, lot to talk about, lot to dissect. There was some fights on over the course of the weekend. There wasn't many. There was obviously the card in Japan, which I'll talk about now in a wee bit. And obviously there was what we're going to talk about now, which was the main fight that was going to take place this weekend, which was of course Edgar Berlanga versus Jay Quigley. Now, I didn't do any preview of this fight, didn't really give a breakdown and like that. I think most people knew my thoughts of this going into this fight, when it was announced in fact, to be honest. And for me, I thought Jay Quigley was a very poor opponent for your Matchroom debut. And in actual fact, I actually said that from what I can see here, he's actually having a step down from what he was fighting over at Top Rank in terms of the quality of the opposition. Now, Jay Quigley, to his credit, this was his first fight at super middleweight, by the way. He's a career middleweight. He gave a decent account of himself. Now, I have to say, in defeat, he did get... I expected him to get absolutely blown out of the water in this fight. I really did. He was down 4 times, but realistically, I would say the only time he was really seriously in trouble was in the 12th round, where he obviously was dropped twice. He was dropped in the 5th round, and it was that was more a balance shot than anything else. Didn't even hit him in the head. It was almost like it hit him in the arm, and his feet were just a little bit off, so he went down. Just more so balanced. But it was a legit knockdown, don't get me wrong. But in the first couple of rounds, he was sharp. He definitely had... he obviously was the faster of the two. He's well schooled, Jay Quigley, to his credit. And I think one of the reasons why he's not looked so good the last couple of years. So obviously against Demetrius Andre, 2-round demolition job. Jay Quigley is trained by Andy Lee. Now, for whatever reason, I think he said it was visa issues or something like that. I'm not 100% sure of the ins and outs of it. But Andy Lee, I don't think he was in America at all the last couple of years. I think it's only recently he's been able to go back there. So Andy Lee, who started training Jay Quigley towards the back end of 2019, hasn't been actually there in Jay Quigley's corner. And I think that obviously Andy Lee has other commitments as well, and I think Jay Quigley tends to base himself a lot out of the States. He says based it more so in the UK, to be fair, but he's over back in the States a bit. So he's not really had the luxury of being able to commit to Andy Lee over the course of the last 3 years. So he's been able to do that now, and I think that did pay dividends. You know, Andy Lee, a lot of people give Andy Lee a bit of flack as a trainer because of his only real name is Joseph Parker, and Joseph Parker has already been heavyweight champion with Kevin Barry, and now he's looking not the best, and people are using that to say, well, Andy Lee is clearly not a good trainer. You're only as good as who you have at the end of the day. You know, Andy Lee could be teaching Joe Parker loads, but at the end of the day, Joe Parker has virtually no ambition at this stage. All he wants to be is a cheerleader for Tyson Fury. I mean, that's all he really is nowadays, is Joseph Parker. So you could say, well, you know, Joseph Parker hasn't looked any better under Andy Lee. You could have chucked anyone in Joe Parker's corner and he's not going to look any better, because the ambition is just not there. You know, at the end of the day, this is someone who, he is literally a cheerleader for Tyson Fury. And, you know, people could say, well, you know, Tony Bellew is a cheerleader for Anthony Joshua, and he definitely is. But I think it's worse with Joseph Parker, because at the end of the day, right, Tony Bellew cheerleads Anthony Joshua, we know that. He's a complete company man, we know that. But he's retired. You know, that's understandable. He's retired. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's understandable. Mate, you should be looking to fight Tyson Fury. He's got a belt. God damn it. Why even? You're in his same division. You're an active fighter. He's a champion. You should want to be taking that title, and you should be saying, I think I can beat him. No, none of that. Joke. But anyway, that's a rant about Parker over. But Andy Lee, I think, is a better trainer than people give him credit for. In this fight, Jay Quigley started off okay, but the sheer strength and brute force of Edgar Berlanga, you know, when he started out, people were taking note because he was a Puerto Rican fighter, and you know, since Miguel Cotto retired back in 2017, there's not really been, and you know, Miguel Cotto, he was a cash cow. You know, he wasn't up at the Mayweather levels, but you know, Miguel Cotto with the right dance partner, pay-per-views, and he was doing good numbers on pay-per-views. So he was a big star coming from Puerto Rico. So they haven't really had anybody since then. And with Berlanga coming around, you know, they did kind of look and think, you know, maybe could we be getting behind this guy and stuff like that? But no, I don't think he's going to do anything like Miguel Cotto. I think at the start of his career, I think it was 18-0, 18 knockouts on in the first round before he fought Damon Nicholson. Since then, he's looked poor. And the fight here against Marcelo Esteban Carrasas, I think is how you say that name. That was on the undercard of Fury versus Wilder 3. I thought he lost that fight. I really did. Didn't look great against Steve Rolls. Didn't look great against Angulo. And again, I think that Jay Quigley, no disrespect, is a step down from those guys. I really do. So, Berlanga, Eddie Hearn is, singing his praises, as he would. He's obviously his promoter. But I think with him, you're going to have to match him careful. You really will, because... And again, who is he going to fight really on the zone when you look at the super middleweight division? Because he's a big super middleweight, but who does Hearn in terms of super middleweight? I'm just trying to think. And even light heavyweights, you've got light heavyweights, you can have Bivol and people like that, but is he really going to risk him against Bivol? Someone like that, maybe bring Bivol there, but what's the incentive, So, look, I don't know with Berlanga, but he got the job done against Quigley as we all expected. I'd like to see him step up a little bit, but I'm not expecting miracles from Edgar Berlanga, put it like that. I haven't been for a lot, well, I haven't been since the get-go, really, but I really just don't see that much there. He's a big guy with a bit of power, but that's really it. In terms of some of the news, so obviously, the main talking point last week was the Dillian Whyte Anthony Joshua situation. So Dillian Whyte went on TalkSport, gave an interview there, and I'll quote it here. He's actually declared that he's willing to accept the offer for Anthony Joshua on August the 12th, but he said he does not believe that AJ and Hearn are serious about making the fight, as there's been no communication from their end of the deal. He said we had one three-line email about the fight, no conversation at all with Eddie Hearn, just disappeared. Why are you doing millions of interviews about fighting me when you're not actually negotiating the fight? Now, if you went and you actually listened, and Eddie Hearn actually came out on a Boxing Social interview and actually declared that they have now signed a contract with Dillian Whyte for the rematch with Anthony Joshua. He has accepted their offer. So we haven't had an official announcement on the fight. Maybe expect that in the next week. Maybe this was just to get it relevant. I don't know. Get people talking about it. I don't know. But apparently the fight's been accepted. Now, when you listen to that TalkSport interview Dillian Whyte gave, he said that basically Eddie Hearn and them, they had a conversation. He was contacted by Hearn, and he obviously sent what he wanted back. Now, reported last week that it was 10 million, which both Whyte and Hearn refute. So we can say that's not the issue. But the point of content Dillian Whyte was talking about was that he was saying that O2, but he feels it's a stadium. And he also feels that it needs more time to be promoted and managed. So why not have it a little bit later in the year as opposed to August? Now, I'm not surprised that Eddie Hearn, if they were what Dillian Whyte sent back, didn't budge. Because at the end of the day, right, you're not going to get this fight in the stadium. It's unlikely anyway. I just can't see it, And then again, you got to figure, what stadium you're going to do it in. You have to make contacts and stuff like that. And you only get the football season scheduled last week, so there's a lot of things like that. But I don't think this would do a stadium personally. A small stadium, maybe, but a stadium, no. I don't think it would do it. And as well as that, if AJ is serious, well, I'm sure he is serious, but if Hearn, I should say, is serious that this Wilder fight is actually going to happen in December, why in God's name are you going to fight someone, say, the end of September, start of October, when you have a fight? And look, I'd be picking AJ. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a fairly run-of-the-mill win for AJ. But you don't want to take an unnecessary risk. Not in terms of losing, necessarily. But say AJ chucks a right hand in Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte arm up blocks it. AJ catches an elbow. Boom, right hand's injured. December date's gone. AJ, clash of heads. Gash. Oh, you're going to need 6 to 8 weeks for that to heal. Alright, when can I start sparring? 6 to 8 weeks. Fights happen in December. You're goosed. So I can see why Eddie Hearn wants to do it in August. It gives them, excuse me, a little bit more leeway towards December, because that's roughly about 3 months. 3 months there, thereabouts, a little over. So I can see why 3-4 months. I can see why Eddie Hearn wants to do it in August. If they're going to announce it, they're going to want to announce it now, as far as I'm concerned, because you don't have that much time to market it. You don't have that much time to promote it, because at the end of the day, like next week, next week is the first week of July. So you're going to want to get a move on. You're only going to have 6 weeks, roughly 6 weeks, to get this fight over the line. So I would envision there should be probably an announcement in the coming week. Tyson Fury was talking about an announcement a couple of days ago. Ain't heard a peep since then. Mind you, ain't heard a peep. So God knows what the announcement is. He is keeping us all waiting. In terms of some announcements we got Canelo Alvarez announcing that he has now a 3-fight deal with PBC, reportedly worth over 100 million. 100 million. Damn. And Eddie Hearn was asked about it, and he acknowledged it. He said, I think it's a good move for him. Now we have to have a look at the huge pot of money for Canelo fights and bring big fights to the zone. 2022 was Matchroom's year. 2023 right now is PBC's year. We want to win. And, you know, Eddie Hearn, I think in that interview right there, is keeping his boots to the ground. He's not coming out and saying, because, you know, if Eddie Hearn came out and said, you know, we can afford to lose Canelo, he's talking out of his arse. You know, it's a hit for the zone. It is. And anyone else saying, you know, oh, it's not a hit for the... It's get real. Like, honestly, like, get real. Stop simping. Get real. It is a hit. Everyone acknowledges that it's a hit. PBC, although they're not putting on as many shows, they have definitely the more star power, certainly in America. You know, the Spencers of the world, the Charlos, Benavidez, and now Canelo. So they have a big base to work with. In many ways, this is what Canelo has done. He was given 2 offers last year. He was given a PBC offer and a Matchroom offer, both of which were 2-fight deals. PBC's was Charlo Benavidez, I remember this at the time, and Matchroom's was Bivol Golovkin. He chose the zone, right? Well, he said the zone. We're not saying Matchroom, the zone. He chose the zone. He had the Bivol fight, lost, had the Golovkin fight, and then obviously he had the John Ryder comeback fight, which is fine. Now he's gone and he's taken PBC up on the offer. When I was hearing about this and I was thinking 3 fights, I was thinking, well, Charlo makes sense the first fight, fair enough, right? Doesn't deserve it, but fair enough. I get where they're coming from. Charlo's a name and it'll do good numbers and make a lot of money. Benavidez, that makes me think that we're not going to get Benavidez versus Morel. Just have that feeling that they won't risk Benavidez versus Morel because they'll want Benavidez to fight Canelo. And that's what I'm worried about there, because I like the Benavidez-Morel fight. I think it's a good fight. But Benavidez makes sense for next year. But then I was thinking, like, who in God's name are they actually going to get? Because I'm like, you're not going to get Demetrius Andrade because he's not a name. He is not that big a name. And I just didn't see it. And of course, completely flying over my mind, Errol Spence. Because he's talked about that fight for years. Years and years ago, I remember people talking about Spence and, you know, rumoured offers and this, that and the other. And if Spence beats Crawford in July, it wouldn't even shock me in the slightest if he moved up. Now, it'd be 3 weight divisions. They'd probably do it at a catch weight of, say, 164. But I could easily see him going up to super middleweight and fighting Canelo. If he beats Crawford, Spence versus Canelo, don't BS me. It is a massive fight. That's a massive fight. I wouldn't say it's not. That's a massive fight. It's a huge fight. Spence Canelo is a huge fight. It really is. If he beats Crawford as well, you're going to have the battle of the undisputed. You know, you have the undisputed welterweight, you have the undisputed super middleweight. Let's see who can do it. I think that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, when I look at the zone, you have the Bivol rematch, but that's really it. You're hardly going to want to fight Callum Smith. You know, if you say he beats the Biterbi, if you're hardly going to fight him again. So there wasn't as many options for the zone of Matchroom as there would be for PBC. And as well as that, you know, you got to think about it, Canelo as well is in, like, obviously he is a fighter who does prioritise legacy, but he wants to get paid as well. And those fights, the Benavidez fights, the Charlo fights, the Spence fights, the big money fights. The big money fights. There's no ifs or buts, they're huge. So, makes sense. So, PBC and Al Heyman, although they're not as consistent with the cards as a Bob Arum, as an Eddie Hearn, as a Frank Warren, they have the names, they have the star power. They really do. You know, Tank Davis, chuck his name in there. I'm hearing rumours that Ryan Garcia could be PBC bound. So although PBC, and they have had a serious lull, anyone saying PBC, they've had a massive lull over the last few years, and they're still not putting on enough shows. In my opinion, they're not putting on enough shows, but they're getting these big names. You know, when they're putting on the pay-per-views and the names, I mean, this year alone, they're already going to have done, well, they already have done Plant Benavidez, they've done Garcia Tank, and now they're doing Spence Crawford. God knows what they might get towards the back end of the year. So they're putting the shows on, the big shows, albeit maybe not consistently putting shows on, but they're putting enough on, enough of the big ones. So it's big moves for PBC, it really is. Now, this is an interesting one, right? So Tony Bellew was talking about this last week. He was asked on TalkSport because he said he'd like to come out of retirement to fight Lucas Rosansky. He says he thinks he'd absolutely pulverise him. The thoughts of becoming a 2-weight champion and the oldest UK champion I can remember, excuse me, would be great. You know, Tony Bellew is not that old. He is only 40 years old. It is strange because I would associate him with being older, but he's not. He's only 40 years old. He retired 4.5 years ago when he lost to Alexander Usyk. I don't see him beating Rosansky. I don't see him coming back. Well, I'd say I don't see him coming back. Maybe he would come back, but I don't see him being successful if he did. I really don't. He said about not being able to really get down to cruiserweight, and, you know, I can imagine that, to be fair. But at bridgerweight and even at heavyweight, you know, I just can't envision Bellew doing much. You know, he's been away from boxing altogether for that period of time. And the fact of the matter is, you know, Bellew, if there's one thing you would say that is maybe in his favour, when he fought Alexander Usyk, that wasn't a Bellew on the decline. Right? Was he probably in his athletic peak? No. But was he really regressing as a fighter? No. You know, you would say that he had the good wins over David Haye, although saying that, you know, David Haye was shot to pieces, but nevertheless, he had those fights. They weren't punishing. Gave a good account of himself at the start against Alexander Usyk, and then obviously was taken out. But Bellew had never shown signs. I mean, against David Haye, he probably wouldn't. But even against Usyk, he never showed signs that he was on the decline. But 4 years out of the ring, 4.5 years, maybe 5 years, if he does come back by the time he actually sets foot in the ring, is too long, as far as I'm concerned. You know, 5 years out of the ring when you're 20, you have a couple of fights, you get an injury, and you come back at 25. That's nothing. You know, it's something, but it's not anything to worry about necessarily. You know, a good example would be Denis Lebedev. Denis Lebedev won a Russian light heavyweight title in 2004. Forget how old Lebedev would have been, but he was in his 20s. He wasn't making that much money from boxing. I think he was in the army as well. Came back 4 years later, 2008, was gone for 4 years. Came back as a cruiserweight, and that was him in his peak. You know, Denis Lebedev made good money, cruiserweight champion multi times over, and retired, I think, in 2016, 2017. Or maybe it was later. Maybe it was 2018, 2019. I think he lost to Machunu, and that was it. But he could get away with that because he was young enough, right? Not when you're in your mid-30s going into your 40s. That's a different ball game altogether, right? It is a very different ball game. So for me, Bellew against Rosansky is just a no-go. For me, I would say just stay being retired. You know, I thought we'd never see you again, Kooks. You know, and going back to the ring, I just don't see that as being a very good idea. I really, really just don't see that as being a good idea, personally. Now, Kazuto Ioka, he beat Joshua Franco yesterday morning on points to win the Super Flyweight, the WBA Super Flyweight World title. A great performance, very good. Kazuto Ioka was tremendous. We all know that he really, truly is. But I don't think that fight should have happened because Franco missed weight by 2 weight divisions. He was a super bantamweight. He weighed in super bantamweight for a super flyweight fight. I really don't. Now, obviously, Ioka won. It made no difference. But when it's that dramatic a weigh-in to miss weight by, you really should be looking at pulling the fight. I know they did a rehydration clause, a big rehydration clause. You could only weigh in at 1:30 in the morning of the fight. But still, you know, missing weight by... It's unprofessional, always. Always unprofessional missing weight. But if you miss weight by 3 ounces, fine. You know, maybe the scales were off. I'm not saying it's okay, you know, it's still unprofessional, but I can understand, you know, maybe a mistake's made, etc. But you're missing weight by a couple of pounds, much less, what, 6 odd pounds, 6.5 pounds? Nah, that's a no-go. You know, didn't he miss weight by something mad in it? Like, he was meant to fight Gabe Rosado. Thank God that fight didn't happen a couple of months ago. I think it was in March. And he missed weight by some incredible amount. Like, it was bizarre. It was like over 10 pounds, I think it was. It was crazy. Those fights can't happen, as far as I'm concerned. It's mental. Now, Deontay Wilder's trainer, Malik Scott, has declared they've now sent an official offer to Andy Ruiz to fight next. He says, the ball is in your court, let's get it signed. Ruiz has showed some footage of himself in training, more so just some footage of himself saying, you know, yeah, let's go and let's see, let's get the ball rolling, so to speak. So, Andy Ruiz versus Deontay Wilder. Now, this is a strange one because Sullivan only announced during the week that they're not going to pursue a mandatory, at least for the time being, for Tyson Fury, which I think is absolutely disgraceful. I really do. I mean, what's the point in having the mandatories if you're not going to even try and shed some light on one of them? But they were going to do Ruiz versus Wilder as the final eliminator. And if Wilder and Ruiz are going to fight now, well, they don't have to necessarily, if they don't want to, fight as a final eliminator for the WBC. I mean, the WBC can say, we're going to order this fight as an eliminator, but they could happily take that fight and not say, we're not going to pay sanctions to WBC. We're just going to fight, just as is. In which case, they're perfectly entitled to do that. They don't have to, just because WBC order it doesn't mean that they have to follow through with it. If they fight, they can fight, and just say, right, we're not paying you sanction fees, so we're not actually fighting in the eliminator, we're just fighting each other. They could do that. In terms of Wilder Ruiz, Ruiz seemed more willing to get that fight than Team Wilder for whatever reason. I don't know why. I really see that fight as being a fairly foregone conclusion for Deontay Wilder. I really do. But for whatever reason, they were seeming to not want to go down that road. If they're looking to fight Anthony Joshua, for me, Ruiz, alright, Ruiz is a good opponent. He's a better opponent than Dillian Whyte, certainly at this point. So you would say Wilder is fighting the harder of the two. But if you're going to be fighting Anthony Joshua, who's 6'6", 250 odd pounds, he's a boxer puncher. He's methodical, robotic, very stiff, very upright. Can throw short punches, but doesn't really seem to do a lot of it these days. Ruiz is a front foot pressure fighter who's 6'2" with quick hands, and his short punches are his better shots. It's a completely different style altogether to Joshua. So you would think if you're going to be fighting Joshua next, you would want a similar as kind of style or dimensions anyway, certainly than Anthony Joshua. With Ruiz, you ain't getting that in the slightest. You are getting something completely different. So I don't know, will they still go down the avenue of this road? I know they're both advised by Al Heyman. I don't think Ruiz is actually. I think they're both free agents, but Ruiz is still advised by Al Heyman, as is Deontay Wilder. Would they look to just do that fight for an absolute rake of cash? Maybe try and get the Saudis involved, do it sometime in August in Saudi Arabia. Rake of cash, there you go. Get Wilder ready for December. Maybe they would. I don't know. I really, truly don't know. But I'm pretty sure they're both free agents, but they are still both advised by Al Heyman. So I don't know. But Ruiz is seeming to talk a good game, so it looks like we could be getting Wilder versus Ruiz next. I mean, I wouldn't hold my breath on it, but it's looking like we could have it. So in terms of anything else, I'm not 100% sure there's a massive amount of news that came out other than what we just kind of covered in this video. I really don't see. I'm not seeing a massive amount. So that's pretty much it for the time being. Of course, we have a week coming up now. By the way, I just want to let you know, this Friday, I am going to Amsterdam with my friends for a couple of days. I've never been, so I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to try and we won't be doing review of the, we might do a review of the week next. I'm actually home early enough on Monday, so we might get a late review of the week next Monday. But I'm going to try and get a backup of videos, just some preview videos, over the course of the weekend. So I'll probably record them during the week and then upload them while I'm over there, have them set up for uploading. Because I don't like leaving the channel for a couple of days idle, I don't like doing that. I like just being consistent, because that's how you get the numbers. People always ask me, and it always frustrates me because they never flip and listen. People would always message me on Twitter or something, be like, I'm trying to start a YouTube channel, or I have started a YouTube channel. What's the best way to grow? Make sure you keep chucking out the videos. If there's ever a news break it. Try and break it as quick as you can, because you'll hit in, it'll be trending, so you'll hit in with at least some views, and just try and stay consistent. Those are the 3 points I would always give, and those are the 3 points that people very seldom ever listen to. And then, that breaking news video, yeah, when did you do it? I did it 3 days later and it got no views. Well, duh, because it's not breaking news now, it's flipping old news. So just if anyone is listening and thinking of starting a new channel, I would advise that, because it's worked quite well here and it's worked quite well for others. It's tried and tested, it works. So I would advise doing that. Just try and keep it, and try and keep as many videos out as you can. Don't be taking 5 days off between uploads. It just doesn't work. Just a bit of advice there for anyone who wants it. So that's my thoughts on everything. In terms of everything else, I'm going to get this probably out on Sunday. I haven't done a Sunday preview or Sunday premiere in a while, so we'll do that tonight. And yeah, I will leave you with that, lads. You had me all this week, so I'm going to be doing a lot of videos. I actually start a new job next week. Start a new job on Wednesday week. So I've had a bit of time off, because I knew I was starting it in July, so I took a bit of time off between then and there. But yeah, so I have a bit more free time now for the next week, and then back into it then. So we'll make the most of this next week we have, and then obviously I'm away on Friday until Monday, but we'll be good to go. I'll leave it there. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Lads, for now, I will talk to you. Have a great week to whoever's listening. I wish you nothing but the best. Peace.